that we have changes the demographic of rooms like AA or rehab, right? Because people are getting turned out, chewed up, and spit out at a much younger age than the whiskey drinker who can function until he's 50, 60, 70 before he's like, man, I need help, right? I mean, sure, there's cases that people can drink and need treatment very quickly, absolutely. But we must notice that the demographics are extremely young now because of things like meth, heroin, and the heavier drugs. So when I was in this treatment program, you can just feel the energy, right? The energy is, it's like really insecure, really, fragmented, and you felt like it's like, well, I like him and he's a jerk, that guy's weird, and everybody's in a little clique, right? And one thing I noticed was that I had my guitar. And when I had my guitar, right, we'd get in between making lunch and we'd have to, do the dishes, and I would break out the guitar and I would start playing, and the whole milieu would come together. And all of a sudden, all the walls would break down. All the clickiness would break down, and we'd write these stupid country songs and sing them about like the support staff and dance around like cowboys. And that really stuck with me, how powerful that was. Because the world disappeared in that moment. You know what I mean? The shame disappeared, the guilt disappeared, the hopelessness disappeared, right? The separation disappeared, and connection was born. So that really stuck with me a lot. So, I stayed sober. I got sober and I stayed sober for a while, and I thought my music career was entirely over. I thought it was done, right? I'm sober now. You can't go be a musician and be sober. Can you be a musician and be sober? I mean, no way. Who can stay sober and go be a musician? If you saw the things I saw on tour, you would know there ain't no way you can be a musician and stay sober. But that's just a big lie, right? That's a big lie that my head tells me. And this is one of the things that I think is really an important part when we talk about recovery. Because for those that are struggling and looking for what's on the other side, we love to tell ourselves what the ending is. Life will never be good again without dope. I will never be pain-free without fill in the blank, right? I can never be pain-free again. I can never live a life without Norcos, whatever. I can never go to college without Adderall. Right? For me, it was, I could never live without this grocery list of items for which to choose from. Whiskey, meth, Molly, weed. I mean, I didn't believe it was possible, right? And this is a big issue of recovery, that we have this idea of how it's going to be before we even know how it's going to be, right? So, one of the things that I think was important about that music that stuck with me was the fact that in that moment, there was just happiness and joy. And when we get to that place, the other stuff is gone. It doesn't matter. Because when you're happy, you're not worried about what you don't have. You're just happy. You're just content, right? So, that lie that my head told me about how my life would be over and it was going to suck. This is what I thought about sobriety. I thought, okay, if I keep getting loaded, I'm surely going to die. And so I should probably be sober. But let me tell you remember, because I already know how sobriety is going to be. I already know how getting off of heroin and meth is going to be. It's going to be like a guy who comes back from war, right? I didn't get killed in Afghanistan, but I got my legs blown off. That's literally what I thought it was going to feel like. I'm alive, I'm sober, but I have this diminished, horrible life. Why is that important? Why is that important if that's what we think? Because that shows that the issues is being able to go through life and feel good about it, right? That's a key of recovery. Again, back to these measures of wellness that we'll talk about more in a minute. So I thought my life was over, it would never be fun, I couldn't have music again, it was going to be this diminished life, I'm going to be like a guy who has no legs, I'm just going to be limping around moping, and it was going to suck. So, fortunately, through this process, I got to go in and do some deeper work, right, on traumas and stuff that I had with my past. And, this is a big part of opiates, right? Because so many people come into opiate addiction through trauma, right? What we're talking about could be physical trauma, could be an injury, can be emotional trauma. there's literally so many women that we've had in our rock to recovery sessions, young 22-year-olds that are trying to kill themselves with opiates because they don't want to feel the trauma, right? So it's a big part of it. But in doing that, and me addressing that in my own life and making right with the past and clearing up, the wreckage and all that kind of stuff that we do in recovery, right? What happened was I was able to stay sober. And in so doing, I'm kind of like intertwining my story and then a little bit of opiates. Are you guys cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay. You have any requests? Like I can tell you about that one time in August back in Cincinnati? I'm just kidding. So, as a result of staying sober, and I was sober a couple of years, and I thought, I couldn't even go to a music show anymore. Not because I was afraid I was going to drink and use. I had a solution. I knew how to stay sober. When I went to a music show, it was so painful to watch people up there performing, because I wasn't. I felt like my career had been ripped away from me. Hi, by the way. I like that you guys are right in the front. This is cool. This is power couple right here. That's how you do it. Yeah. Anyhow, but I started praying and meditating. I literally was like, you know what? I can't handle this anymore. I want to get back into music. And I was, every time that I want something in my life and I can't seem how to get there, what can I do? I can only go to prayer and meditation. Really? It's not even that I know it works. It's just like out of desperation. Please, show me where you want me. Come on. And then I meditated, and I would do like a meditation for manifestation, literally sitting there and going, and you imagine the energy coming out of your root chakra, right? It's down in your loins, and up, like how I make it like frat boy, I go from spiritual to frat boy, just like that. Anyhow, you imagine it coming, it's a sign of maturity is what that is. You imagine it coming out from your root chakra, and I'm laughing because you did it to me. Anyhow, out your third eye. And what I would do is envision what it is I'm trying to manifest. And I literally would start envisioning playing music again. Weirdly, in this time, I was working with my brother. I had this feeling he was going to fire me out of nowhere. We had no beef. Trust me. But I was like, he wouldn't fire me. He would just help me find another job. I had this weird thing that I thought, isn't there some rich guy that's traveling the world that needs me to help him stay sober because I'm so well traveled from all my touring? Not kidding, it was an obsessive thought. And I thought, you know what? I really need a check for like 10 grand so I could start this business. I know I want to help people with music somehow, but I don't know how. And the other thing that started happening is every time I would look at the clock, and I didn't know about this, that it would be 111, 12, 12, 11, 11, 333, 444. Every time I was like, this is the weirdest thing. I started sharing it with some of my friends who are much more spiritual than I. They're like, that means you're spiritually aligned, man. I was like, I don't know, but it's happening. I don't know about that weird hocus pocus stuff. Well, check it out. I went into work one day, and I got fired from my brother out of nowhere. I was like, this is so weird. And I was like, I'm really screwed now because I was out of work. I lost my band. I lost everything, and I was working a day job. I hated it. It sucked. No, it was a great job. I just hated it. I knew I did not belong there in my heart of hearts, and I wanted to say screw you, but I couldn't. That's why I was praying and meditating so much. Anyhow, he fired me out of nowhere. Did not help me get a new job. I was very worried because what was I going to do now? Within 10 days of getting fired, this guy who I knew, a rich guy, calls me. He goes, I'm in Asia. I need you to come keep me from getting loaded. You're sober, right? Yeah. Just like what I was thinking about. I'm not kidding. And I was like, this is really weird. Okay, yeah, you're gonna fly me to Hong Kong? And I went out with him for 3 months and helped him do that. And then when I got home, I got a check for $12,000 out of nowhere from my band, which is really weird. So all these things I had thought were gonna happen, happened. Isn't that weird? And I'm just telling you for fun. The only reason I got that 10, 12 grand was because we had a song in Head PE called Bartender, and there's that big Bartender song by T-Pain, and ASCAP messed up, and his money went into our money, and then after months, they're like, there's a law, if you can't figure it out and figure out how to unintermingle it, it goes to go. So thanks, T-Pain. Appreciate it, homie. True story.
That is hilarious.
This stuff was weird, but it was happening because I was like getting in the spiritual alignment, right? So and I also started meditating on getting back into music. It gives me chills when I talk about it. Or is it the AC? I'd love to say chills. It is pretty chilly in here, isn't it? Well, yeah, let's check in. Yeah, we're pretty good on PowerPoint. I don't know what I did with the clicker. Okay, here it is. I started praying and meditating on getting back into music. And within 10 days of doing that, I got a text from the band Korn that asked me to come play with them. I'm kid you not, I hadn't spoken to those guys in over a decade. Out of nowhere, I was like, hey, do you want to come play guitar with us? Wow. So because I had this solution of sobriety that was working in my life, I could go tour around the world totally sober. People love to say, wasn't it hard? Oh my God, how did you do that? It's like, no, I had a solution. I had a solution that I was working in my day-to-day life, and I got to go get support at meetings throughout the world. I've been to 12-step meetings in Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, France. I mean, you name it. It's cool, too, because you go to a 12-step meeting, and you're in, like, Manchester, you're like, can anybody give me a ride to the hotel? I'll give you a ride, mate, no problem. Get in my car, let's go. And it's like, cool. It's great. It's great support. Anyhow, that was a little shout-out to my 12-step friends in England. But here's the thing, what happened is that the Korn gig was going to go away. The original guy was going to come back, and I was going to be really screwed. Really screwed. Because I was going to be 40 and be out of work. This is like 2 years ago. Be out of work and be sober. And I was going to be out of work musician who barely graduated high school, flunked out of college, and I am now officially screwed with a capital F. Get it? That was cute. Yeah. So I went back to the prayer and meditation, and what it was about was, okay, if this is who I am, a musician who's supposed to be sober, let's change it. What we talk about is helping others. That's the key, right? The whole key to life and everything, why you guys are here, because you're here to help others. Or you just got a family member who's just totally screwed and you're just desperate for answers. But probably you're here because you're passionate about helping others. So I said, okay, God, universe, whatever you are, that sent me that killer check from T-Pain. How do I help people make a living? And this idea came to me, Rock to Recovery, in a bolt of lightning, pretty much. And the idea was to go back into treatment centers and bring music, right? And now I'm going to actually tie back to this conference, which is about opiates and not about me. The idea is to bring music into treatment centers and figure out a way to fill that void, because it seems so many were lacking music and stuff like this. So when we talk about opiate addiction, we were talking earlier about the trauma, right? That so many people that are addicts, right, or addicted to opiates have suffered some form of trauma, right? And there's some cool numbers too. Oh, they're not cool. They're messed up numbers. So we have about 10 million addicted people, right, in the United States, estimatedly. Last year we lost 72,000 to overdoses. And the concept is here that's going on is it's getting worse and not better, right? It's getting worse and not better. But the ideas about a lot of the solution, if you will, is to stop the opiates from coming in the country. But when you figure that what appears to be the majority are getting addicted to opiates through trauma, and that doctors were the #1 prescribers of opiates for a long time, I don't know where the up-to-the-date ranking is, then keeping them out is not going to be the be-all, end-all solution, right? So what is it? So when we started doing Rock to Recovery groups, what we noticed is some really key components to helping battling the opiate addiction. And I wish I could tell you I was this masterful PhD clinician, but I'm not. As you know, I'm just a musician that created this music program. But on my board of directors, I have Constance Scharf, and she is a PhD addiction specialist that has done extensive work with opiates, especially. So when we started bringing in music into the treatment setting, one of the first things I was scared. Matter of fact, I pitched this idea for about 6 or 8 months, and people, I would tell them about, I'm going to come in, we're going to write songs. They'd go, that sounds great, man. And I go, you want to hire me? Like, no. Everyone kept saying, no. 6, 8 months, pitching this thing. Everybody loved it. Nobody wanted to go for it. Till one guy, Paul Moen at Balboa Horizons, gave me a chance to do it. And so, funny personal stories, once they hired me, they go, okay, we want you to start next week. And I was like, oh, man. Because my brother, who's also a musician, said, that's a horrible idea. You're going to try to write songs with non-musicians, with people who haven't even played? Do you know how hard it is just to write a song with your band? You get pissed at the singer, you're pissed at the guitar player, you know? It's like, how's this going to work? So I thought, oh my God, and you know, I'm an alcoholic, right? I'm filled with fear. So I'm thinking, my brother's right. I can't do this. I cannot do this. So I go, you got to give me a couple weeks. And I went, and what saved me from doing it was, of course, I went deep into prayer and meditation, but I saw this TED Talk, which was on the why, right? The why of why we do things. For example, instead of like, hey, you want a computer? Here's a computer. Why don't you buy it? What Apple did, right, it says, hey, you want to integrate your photos with your movies and your family, and you want to do this and that? Well, this does that. This does that. Oh, I want that, right? So why was I going in there? Because I was sick of seeing people die. And I was sick of seeing treatment programs that were lacking expressive arts. Okay, we can draw a picture, but come on. And I'm not saying that art therapy isn't incredibly valuable, but music? We're not using music? Right. So I said, okay, I'm going to go in there. I'm just going to tell these people my story. And of those people in there, that the first couple groups I did, I started with the men. Nobody was over 30, and they were all junkies. There was like one guy who worked on the railroad. He was a pure alkie. But these were all young guys, right? And I told them the story. We're just going to try to use music to lift us up. So here's an impressive story that really, because again, I was scared. This thing might fail. Are they going to throw a maraca at me? You know what I mean? Are they going to be like, screw you, here's your djembe, shove it, buddy. I am out of here. So I have the first group going, right? And they were receptive to this idea. And this guy comes in that I call Mr. Pink. And he comes in late to group. And he is a dope, sick, back alley junkie, right? Dope, sick, back alley junkie. Like, this guy hasn't slept in weeks. He's defecating himself, and I'm not saying that for effect. I mean, this is where he's at. This is, if you've ever been dope sick, it gets that ugly. It is horrible. You lose control of your body. You want to die. You feel like you have the worst flu in the world. But with a flu, sometimes you fall asleep. Sometimes you can, you know, make it to the bathroom. This is worse than that. And he came in and he said, why am I in a music group? What is this about? I'm trying not to die. I'm going to keep shooting dope, and I'm probably going to die. What am I doing in here? And I explained to him what we were trying to do. I explained that we were going to use music, right, to check out for a little while. We're going to use music as a healing force of expression. I'm getting chills right now. And I didn't know a lot of the stuff that I know now about it. So I was just trying to get him to buy in and sell. So buy in on what we were doing. And we were writing a song. So we went around the room, and we started talking about some of our traumas, and some of our issues, and some of our challenges, and that became the lyrics for our song. So now he could buy in, right? Because this is now part of him. This is part of his song. I don't want to shoot dope anymore. I don't want to die. These kind of lyrics are there. And we started constructing the song. So instead of just like a drum circle, which are very cool, where it's just kind of random, we're now putting pieces of the song together. We're going to stop, we're going to start, the chorus goes 4 times, break it down over here. So now he's like, and oh, by the way, the reason he's called Mr. Pink, is because the only instrument I had left was a little shaker. And it looks like a little pink egg. It's a legit instrument, it really is, but it looks like a baby toy. And I gave it to him, and I was like, can you just maybe play this? Watch, I'll show you. And I show you where the breaks are, I'll show you the groove is. So I'm going around and we're doing the session and we're developing this song, right? And what happened was, he gets up out of his chair and he starts moving around. And he's like, wait, how long is the chorus? 4 times? Okay. He started getting excited. He started transforming. So at the end of the session, he was jumping around. He's like, that was amazing. That's amazing. Oh my God, I go, how you feel? He goes, dude, I don't feel dope sick anymore. He goes, this is great. I feel great. I want to live. I want to live now. I mean, I can almost cry talking about it. And if you saw where this guy came from, he wanted to die, he was suicidal, he wanted to shoot dope until he was dead. But the power of playing music, even if it was a baby rattle, improved his measures of wellness. And what we know now is that, one thing I like to say is, like, deep down inside of every junkie, every alcoholic, deep down inside of every one of us is a happy little child, right? That's the essence of who we are, right? Happy, joyful, love, compassion. That's the essence of who we are. That's the essence of God to me, right? Full of love. But it gets this shell, this horrible shell of addiction or hurt or pain or whatever, right, around it. But what we helped him do that day was tap into that, which is really hard to do if you're a junkie who's dope sick. Can you imagine? I mean, is it anything short of magic? I don't think so. I think it's magical. And so what happened is he was introduced to that little playful spirit he had, and it gave him a glimmer of hope that this still exists. So what we're finding now, too, with music is we know that when you play music, it's different than when you listen to music, right? It engages the whole brain. When you listen to music, how many people here love to listen to music because it changes the way you feel? You guys better all raise your hand or I'm leaving. That's listening to music. That's you hearing it, half of your brain lights up. When you play music, your whole brain lights up. So it brings you into the present moment, and it acts as a transformative mechanism. What happens is when you play music is it helps release endorphins, oxytocin, cortisol, repairing neural pathways, serotonin, dopamine, right? So what happens is when we are doing these music sessions, we are literally giving junkies, opiate addicts, people who are detoxing, right, new experiences to create new neural pathways in their brain that are acting organically the same way that psych meds act. Organically, by playing an instrument, we're changing brain and body chemistry. That is miraculous. So what I wanted to bring up into this discussion is that when we can talk about replacing opiates with some other drug or chemical, we're switching. And what we know now is the vast majority of people who are having issues with opiates are dealing with some sort of trauma that they need to address. And to go through that trauma is very difficult and very painful, and it hurts, and nobody wants to do it. But now what we know is when you couple this process of dealing with your past traumas, right? And use it in conjunction with an experiential therapy such as Rock to Recovery, where you're writing and recording a song. So maybe you're dealing, we had a woman, for example. She kept relapsing over and over. She couldn't stay sober. Both of her children had died from overdoses. So finally in a treatment center, she's like, fine, I'm gonna write about it in a process group. And she wrote just pen to paper. You know how we do in treatment, just, let me get it out. And right after that group, for the first time of really just, the catharsis of dumping that out about losing her children, she brought that into a Rock to Recovery session. She had never sang, she had never played, she had never written lyrics, and we brought her in. And she went from just like, how would a mother feel processing losing your children, to, dare I say, uplifted. I'm not going to say she was stoked, but smiles, happy, like, wow, thank you. I feel so good now. And this is the key. This is the thing, the reason why I wanted to, I thank you, by the way, Jody, for asking me. I wanted to speak to this because we now have evidence that this kind of coupling works, right? I think it's an important thing that we start to diminish going from one chemical to another, but actually process the things that are the reasons, the trauma that's deep down inside of us that is bringing us back to the drug again and again and again. How am I doing?
Great.
Right. Awesome. Really? Okay, cool. So some of the things that we experience in the group, people come in, they're hopeless. Life's never going to be good again. I'm ashamed of all the things I've done. The world sucks. I have trauma. I'm guilty. I have no self-esteem. Nobody gets me, right? You don't know the life I had, right? I'm going to die. Or they can't identify their feelings. When we get together in a rock to recovery session, what we do is we form a band and we write a song together. They come in going, I can't do this. They leave going, wow, we did that. They leave having sung. We sing in almost every session. We get everybody singing. Yes, everybody. They all know, you don't understand, I can't sing. By the end, they are singing. And what that does is releases oxytocin, which is called the love molecule by science, because it's what we release when we feel love and connected, when we hug somebody, when you breastfeed, after childbirth. This is when oxytocin is released. So we're battling these mental states by a physical activity that to me is a spiritual experience. I truly think playing music is a spiritual experience, especially when you're a person who never has done it, or rarely does it, or is afraid to do it. We now give them the measures of wellness, and they can walk out and go, you know what? Maybe there is hope without opiates, right? Maybe I can be happy without shooting dope. So what we find in the end of the day is that exactly these things. When people come into our rock to recovery sessions, instead of just being like, oh God, I'm in treatment, they go, hey, there's something I could be excited about. I'm going to at least play some guitar today. Maybe I'll write some lyrics. Get them excited about their treatment more quickly. It helps them open up to the therapeutic process. Think of your just to make a point, your quintessential big guy, tough guy. I'm not talking about that. Oh, I showed my feelings. But when you give them a bed of a song, it suddenly can come out, right? And I talked about the inner child. And if you ever see a group of, at the end of one of our sessions where they come in going, no way, and they hear how good the band sounds, the self-esteem is immense. And that's a big deal for somebody who's coming off of opiates, having self-esteem and feeling good about themselves. So, again, I'm really happy to have been asked to come down here and get to speak. Just to finish up the story of Rock to Recovery, what I started doing in June of 2013 with just an idea, took off, and I started hiring my friends. Can I show them to do what I'm doing? And now I've just hired my 12th employee. We have been adapted as part of the weekly treatment curriculum. Every week we're there. Of over 100 treatment programs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So my guys have full-time careers doing this. I found a bunch of sober musicians. There's a lot of us out there, believe it or not. And we do over 450 sessions every month. And we work a lot with opiate addicts and junkies and alcoholics alike. And for the guy who thought he could never do music again, we created a nonprofit so we could donate our services to state-funded and other nonprofit organizations that can never afford a music therapy service. They just don't have funding for stuff like that. And as a result, we had our fundraiser this year that was just Saturday. And every year we have a sober concert. But we're trying to fuse the world of like normal people and then sobriety and make it really cool. And right? Why should sobriety have to hide off in a dark corner and be like, we're sober over in this stinky room? We did it at the Fonda every year. We have 1,200 people sold out. We honored Mike Ness of Social Distortion the first year. The second year we honored Corey Taylor of Slipknot Stone Sour. Last year, Saturday, we honored Moby, who sold 20 million records, who's totally sober, stood on stage and told his story about sobriety. So, yeah, how rad is recovery? When we can do this together and support each other, anything's possible, right? So thanks for letting me share. I guess now is question time, if there are any. Okay, all right.
Thank you very much for sharing your story. It's really exciting. I'm going to get a little closer to it by myself. What I'm interested in is really not a question, more of a comment. Because you and I talked earlier, I'm a musician as well, and I'm a songwriter as well. And what's really fascinating to me is that these people, of which I am one of, that you are describing, have a story. They have a narrative that is pretty much beaten down, and they beat it down themselves. What you are doing by bringing them into this world, and I'm focusing pretty much now exclusively on the songwriting, is allowing them to rewrite their narrative in a way that is positive and hopeful. So that's a really, really huge thing. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
we totally beaten down, and then you can rewrite what your future is going to be.
What we do in rock recovery sessions is we have to let people get dark. And a lot of times people in new recovery think, because they hear so many happy people, like, I have to be happy. It's like, no, you don't, and that's why we're here to support you. So we work, I left this out of my pitch, we work with wounded warriors. Rock Recovery now is a contract with the Department of Defense, and we get flown around the country to work with wounded warriors. We had a gal who had suicidal ideation. She's had so many surgeries, lost her career and everything, she wants to kill herself. We let her, a lot of times when people just write a lot of words, we just let them do spoken word over the middle break of the song. And she talked for 2 minutes about how she dreamt about killing herself. And we supported her in that. She's like, are you sure? This is really dark. But what we do in Rock Recovery is then we create a chorus, which is the solution. So after that darkness, we'll go into, but I don't have to live that way. And we get everybody singing that. They walk out with that hook in their head. So yeah, in a magic way, right, that narrative turns into a hook that they sing. And we record every session, and so they can go back to that song in that moment and share it and relive it over and over. Right? Yeah, thanks.
That's so cool.
Any questions, anybody?
Oh, well, do you have programs for teenagers?
So our program is an ancillary service that we integrate with other treatment programs. We're not a standalone. But we have been working with Newport Academy a long time, Destinations for Teens, and a few other adolescent-based teen programs. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's fun. There's some of the tougher ones, some of the adolescents, because they're like, I gotta be cool. Yeah, I can't do this. You know what I mean? There are also some of the better ones, too. Yeah. Any questions? Hi, what's up?
How do you establish the contact so that you can start implementing the programs into the services you're already in?
For me, you would like to implement Rock Recovery? Wait, let's see if I click some buttons. There we go. You can contact me right here. By the way, I also do a Rock Recovery radio show that is also a podcast on iTunes, where I interview like rock stars and rad humans on recovery too. But yeah, Rock Recovery is basically everywhere on the web. Facebook, Rock Recovery, Twitter, Instagram. And you can email me, wes@rocktorecovery. Yes, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a follow, give us a like. Any other questions?